is real. Listen. Today on Curious Explorers, I interview Sergeant Lyn Buchanan of the U.S. government's secret spying program that used remote viewing. Now, that program was funded from the early 70s to the mid-90s. It was declassified in 1995. So Lyn and I can sit down and talk about things from the history of the remote viewing unit, some of the most intriguing and difficult targets he did. Lyn also talked about the one remote viewing target that was so spiritually transformative it changed his life forever. We also talk about how your life could change for the better and for the worse when you do remote viewing training. In addition, we chatted about the three-letter word that's really a four-letter word in the remote viewing world, and for good reason. What the real sixth sense is, and it might surprise you. And when it's great for your psychic predictions to be wrong. So if you're curious, stay tuned. So hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Curious Explorers. I'm Traci Stein, one of your hosts. Kathy Kelly is on location doing something interesting and intriguing and mysterious. So I have the privilege of interviewing my friend and mentor, Lyn Buchanan, on my own today. But Kathy and I will catch up later. But first, I want to say, Lyn, welcome. And I will do a little bio, and then we'll get into the interview and you can share anything you like.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an honor. Yeah.
Oh, this is so great. The honor is all mine. I'm going to do a brief introduction that won't remotely capture you and all that you are and have to offer. But Sergeant Lyn Buchanan is the former trainer and remote viewer for the U.S. government's remote viewing unit, also known as the Psychic Spying Unit. The unit used a science called controlled remote viewing, which is what we're going to talk a lot about today. It was developed through laboratory research over decades of time by researchers at Stanford Research Institute, also by Ingo Swann himself, and it was honed in practice by the U.S. government's Stargate project. I think that's probably the most well-known name, although the project had a zillion of them. And they collected real-time intelligence for the U.S. government's various military and other intelligence gathering services. Lyn retired from military service in 1992, but he continued training select people within the government who knew about the program and its capabilities. In December of 1995, the CIA effectively declassified the government's remote viewing program. We'll talk a little bit about that too. And people learned of Lyn's role in it. So Lyn is also the founder of Problem Solutions and Innovations, where he teaches people, ordinary people like you and me, to learn how to remote view. He also does private remote viewing for individuals and others. He's the author of the book, The Seventh Sense, which is outstanding. I highly recommend it. And the founder of the new Remote View Ranch. So we'll talk about all of that today and more. But Lyn, again, thank you so much for being here. It's so exciting to have you here on our very new podcast, Curious Explorers, where we get to really talk about all kinds of interesting and very real things, phenomena.
That's good. Yeah, and thank you for inviting me again. Yeah, thank you.
It's so good to see you. So I have a million questions, but
okay.
And thoughts, but also please, share anything that comes up that you would like to. We're going to have a great conversation today. Maybe a good place to start, because I know maybe half the people who listen will be familiar with you, because you can't know about remote viewing without having heard of Lyn Buchanan, and it's true. Even though you're modest, it's true. But you had psychic experiences and telekinetic experiences long before you were selected to be in this program.
Because of one of those experiences that I got selected for the program. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was the one where, and I know it's referenced in the movie Men Who Stare at Goats.
Oh, yeah.
But that example is actually true, right? You want to explain that?
Well, the Men Who Stare at Goats, I did kill the computers.
No goats.
An estimated $50 million worth. But I didn't kill the goat. Okay, that was another sergeant. I was working as a intelligence gatherer over in Germany, and working also on their computer systems. and we had 12 different countries in that same facility, each with their own computer system, and they didn't talk to each other. And they wanted a program that would let the computers talk to each other and share information. So they asked for a programmer that could do that. Well, that came down to one other sergeant and me. So I got it. I got the job. And he was very resentful that he didn't get it. So anyway, about 6 months later, the program was finished. I was showing it to the 12 top generals from all the different countries. And I had gone to the bathroom to check my hair, which now is all over the place, to check my hair and check the creases in my pants to make sure I didn't have any wrinkles or anything like that. My shoes were totally shined and not scuffed. And, you know, things you do before you talk to a room full of generals. And went back and gave them a little song and dance. And then I wanted to do the demonstration. So I turned around and hit the enter key, and the computer went down. And all these people started laughing at me. And I turned around and looked, and this other sergeant was standing at the back door of the room, the door of the room, and said, "Gotcha," and turned around and walked off. I got flaming mad. I do everything I can to never get mad because you've heard of the poltergeist children, you know.
Explain that when you get a chance.
Okay. The poltergeist children are those who, when they get emotionally upset, things fall off shelves and things like
Okay.
that. And that's a whole lot more common than most people understand. And most people grow out of it. When it started happening to me back when I was younger, I thought, hey, this is neat. And so I started playing with it to see how I could control it. And, a little story about there, but I was showing off to the cute little redheaded girl. My wife follows Charlie Brown's quite a bit. And she was impressed and went home and told her father, the Pentecostal minister. And he stopped me on the way home the next day and wanted a demonstration. When he did,
And what you did, can you tell people what you did? Because I remember the story of when you started as a child showing off your telekinetic activities.
well, I actually didn't show it off. I was playing with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for this little girl, showing her what you can do.
So when I showed him what I could do, I had learned how to make a rock go through a piece of metal without leaving a hole. And so this Pentecostal minister brought a rock and a pie plate. And I did it and put the rock on the pie plate, did it like this, and the rock fell through the pie plate. There was no hole. And so immediately they had me down on the sidewalk screaming for Satan to come out of me and pressing my head into the sidewalk and everything. And so, I was raised that if the preacher says it, then God said it too. And so from that point on, I tried to never do it again. And yet I had developed that skill or whatever. And when I get angry, things happen. And so anyway, I got flaming mad at this other sergeant. Said, "Gotcha." And the entire station went down. Come to find out, that was wider than our station. And anyway, this one captain who had been trained to look for these events just happened to be in the station that day and went by just so he could see all those generals in one room. That was his only reason for being there. He eased into the room. He saw the event, and he had been trained by General Stubblebine, the head of the U.S. Army Defense and Intelligence Agency, to spot these things. He reported me to General Stubblebine, and I kept quiet about it. And I knew what had happened. I didn't want to pay for computers. And
$50
so,
million of networked computers.
and so anyway, about 2 months later, General Stubblebine came out to install a new commander at the field station. And when he came out after the ceremony and all that, I got a notice to be in the new commander's office after the ceremony. General Stubblebine came in, looked at me, there's my name tag, and he said, "Are you Sergeant Buchanan?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he said, "Follow me." And he grabbed me and pushed me in front of him, grabbed my arm and pushed me in front of him into the new commander's office. The new commander came in behind the general, which is where I should have been. And General Stubblebine turned around to the new commander and said, "I need to talk to Sergeant Buchanan. Get out." Guess what list I went on for the new commander? The top of for the new commander. The next 2 or 3 months before I left the
Does
station,
it begin with an S
it began with an S.
and end with a T?
I think, yeah, and it was pretty bad. But anyway, a few months later, they had devised a transfer for me to go to Washington. He had planned for me to be the beginning of a unit that would destroy enemy computers, hopefully with the end result of being able to mentally control enemy computers, and make their missiles turn around and go back at them or drop into the sea or whatever. And Congress, who had been caught in mind control experiments in the 60s, are still pretty shy about it. And they said, "That sounds like mind control. No, we won't fund it." And so, really, he didn't know what to do with me. So he took me out to the remote viewing unit, stuck me in there, and that's where I stayed the rest of my military career, learning the remote viewing, teaching it to others, and all that. Best job I've ever had in my life. You talk about interesting. Yeah, really interesting.
I can't even fully imagine. So, to summarize, you've had telekinetic and psychic experiences since early childhood.
But since I was about 12, yeah.
But growing up in a rather, I'm going to say, conservative religious environment, that was not exactly welcomed. But here it is
Oh, yeah.
later on.
I was I grew up, you know, deep East, deep South Baptist. Um, so I didn't talk about this or show it off to anybody except, you
The
know,
cute little girl.
little redheaded girl. Sure, she on them, man. And uh, I practiced this on my own. And my parents, well, my father just sort of turned an eye to it and made like it didn't exist. My mother encouraged it actually,
Oh,
and
wow.
so I had, I guess, from 12 to about 14, 14 years old, I would go out and practice this and get it to where I could do it without the emotion and all that, and learn how to control it and all that. And then, of course, with that incident, um,
You mean the one with the computers?
well, no, the one
Oh,
with
sorry.
the
Okay.
Pentecostal minister, I spent the rest of my life trying to stop it, you know, and trying to never use it, never get emotional about hardly anything, never get mad for sure. And many instances, and if you had talked to my wife, she had seen so many instances where she just sort of backed off and said, "I can't believe this just happened." But anyway, when they took me to the remote viewing unit, Skip Atwater took me over to the building where they did their work, and he sat me down in the front room, and he said, "I want you to look around this room. Look at the molding around the floor. Look at the molding around the ceiling. and get a picture of this room in your mind. And I did. I didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, Lyn, I want you to understand something. In this room, it's okay to be psychic. And I tell you, it was like a ton of weight was lifted off my shoulders right there. That one sentence that Skip Atwater said just opened the floodgates. And he said, in this room, it's okay to be psychic. And, if that's the message I want to tell everybody in this world, it's okay to be psychic. It really is.
I'm so glad you're saying that. And, I had, of course, my list of questions and one kind of relates to this, but I was going to tuck it farther, into the future of the interview, but maybe now is the time to kind of go there a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world, I have to be thoughtful about how I say this because I really don't want to offend anybody. And that's hard to avoid. People
Take the military attitude. If you haven't offended anybody today, you haven't done your job.
I'll keep that in my back pocket. We live in a world where people get very married to belief systems and very frightened about things, I'm going to say, that challenge them, just generally. And I think we can look across the board. The ability to be psychic and see things beyond space and time, things that people maybe don't want us to, and so forth. A lot of people, I think, turn to their religious beliefs or conversely, the I'm going to call it the religion of scientific, I don't know, rationalism, but where like none of this is possible and I don't want to look into it because it's not possible.
Yeah, I know.
To the other end of the spectrum where people say it's possible, but it's like demonic.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have thoughts on that. I get why scientists, and they're not a monolithic group, but I get why a lot of people are religious about their beliefs that this isn't possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But can you speak to the idea of people whose religious beliefs tell them that this is this terrible thing rather than a God-given ability or an innate ability, like seeing or hearing?
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of the churches quote the writings of Paul, where he talks about the seer that was going around and healing people, and it was the slave of this person who was making all the money by going around telling fortunes, having her go around and tell fortunes and all that. And they took that away from her. And she was no longer useful to her owners. So she stopped being a slave. And most of the people take that as, oh, God doesn't want anybody to be psychic. No, God doesn't want anybody to be a slave. And, but the churches bend it toward that. And I think there's one point in the Bible where it says, psychics should be killed. And it's just the writings of somebody and what the church decided they were going to keep in the Bible. Probably about half of the real Bible was never kept in the canon.
It's just such an interesting thing because, like, I really do believe this is an innate ability.
Yeah.
Everybody has. I don't think everybody has it in the same way to the same extent, but I agree with things that you've said and others that it's trainable. We've seen that firsthand. And, among my questions for you today is how would it benefit humanity for people to tap into their intuitive or psychic abilities, whether through remote viewing or some other discipline? I mean, we can stay focused on remote viewing, I guess, but how does it help your average person to be able to do that?
Well, the controlled remote viewing done by the military goes on a scientific basis. And it goes on the fact that your subconscious mind reacts to things, even to things that your five senses don't pick up. And it can do it in spite of time. Can't remember the name of the researcher who would show pictures to people on the screen. and show pictures that were nice, calm, peaceful, sexy, murder scenes, ugly, horror things, and all that, just at random. And he had them on EEG machines, and found that the EEG response would happen before they saw the picture. And so your subconscious mind is psychic. Okay. So the CRV that was used in the military is not a psychic method. It's an interview and report process. You interview your subconscious mind and you learn how to interview it just like you interview people. Okay. You learn how to interview your own subconscious mind and find out what it knows. And believe me, we have found out absolute proof that if there's a captured soldier, our subconscious mind knows where he is or she and can even draw sketches of the room where they're being held. And the floor plans of the buildings when General Dozier was captured by the Red Brigade. Joe McMoneagle not only named the town he was in, but found the building he was in, and the pictures were drawn that let the rescuers go in, know how to go, plan how to go in without getting the general killed, and rescue him. And we can do that, and anybody else can do it too. You just have to learn the process. And so far, we found a lot of people who, well, a lot of people never come to this because this is that psychic crazy stuff, But people will come, they'll experience this. Some of them get scared and don't come back because it takes that paradigm that they have in their life, and in order to accept it, they have to change that paradigm. And listen, a personal paradigm is about the only thing harder than diamond. You can't scratch
So right.
it, And but many people will say, "Hey, this just happened." That opens new frontiers to them.
Absolutely.
And once they accept that they just did it and go with it, oh yeah, it's like opening the gates and let the horses run loose, and it works.
It does. A few moments ago, you referred to, I think you were referring to research by either Dean Radin or Daryl Bem. And I was just talking to Kathy, my co-host, who's not here today, about Daryl Bem's research, but I know Dean Radin has done research that's similar and gone, I believe, a few steps further.
Oh yeah. But
what you were referring to is something we were talking about, is that you can perceive what the next picture will be before it's even been selected. Yeah. I think people don't I'm saying that's the studies I think you were referring to specifically. And to me, that is so persuasive, right? Anecdotes are very persuasive. The data is very persuasive to me. And I am actually at the age now where I don't try and convert anybody to my way of thinking. I feel like everybody's entitled to have their worldview. Right. But if you're open to this, there's decades of data showing that this works and that it is trainable.
You really are, yeah. And people always say, "Show me it works," and I'll believe it. And I always tell them, "No, if I show you it works, you'll think that it works for me. I want you to do it and find out if it works for you."
Right.
And a lot of times on interviews, people will say, "Okay, we're going to select a target and you remote view it and tell us what's in our envelope." And I say, "No, why don't we do this? Why don't I give you about an hour of training, and then we'll have somebody in your crew pick up a magazine, open it to a random page, and then have you describe what's on that page. Oh no, we don't do that. And I said, then, hey, interview somebody else. I don't do dog and pony shows anymore. And if they will do that, it works.
I remember
Yeah.
I remember an anecdote you told, possibly in your book, and I think Russell Targ might have mentioned this because I took a training with him and Stefan Schwartz years ago.
Yeah.
But I think they may have told this anecdote that you did as well, and it was, I believe, of a congressperson or a senator who wanted proof, and you in fact did train that person to remote
Well,
view, and they almost fell over because they realized they could.
no, actually, in that case, he came in and he had a picture in an envelope in his briefcase that his aide had selected and not told him what the picture was. And he said, I want to see one of your sessions. And so he came in, watched over closed circuit TV as I forget who my monitor was. And we did the session. And it's an interview and report process. There's no psychic woo-woo about it, And
Well, you're
no
tapping
spinning
into your
heads
psychic
around.
ability.
Yeah. And so anyway, afterwards, he went over to the director and he said, I was totally underwhelmed at what you do. And he was there to see if he was going to finance this for the following year. Because we only had financing for one year at a time over the entire history of we had to prove ourselves every year. And so he said, I was totally underwhelmed. I too saw two guys sitting at a table, just smoking, talking about, joking, talk about everything else and all that. And every now and then one of them would write something down. And our director said, okay, here's the papers. Here's what was written down. Take out the target from your envelope and look at it and see what they wrote. And our director said that that was the biggest, chance he had ever taken. He was worried that we weren't going to get funded again. And the congressman sat there looking at the picture in the envelope that was in the envelope and looking at our descriptor and saying, damn. Anyway, we got funded for another year.
No, and that's such a great story. Believe it or not, I think Russell and Stefan did train some, bigwig to do this. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
you were saying before,
Yeah.
anybody can learn to do this. I was actually at a gathering a few weeks ago, and somebody was asking about, all of this stuff and remote viewing. And I said, and maybe this just sounded a little bit too eerie, I don't know, but I said, there's pretty much, theoretically, there's nothing in the world that isn't knowable. No one is going to know everything,
That's
but
right.
I think it's freaky for people to think that, theoretically anything is knowable, whether
Yeah.
it's the photo in the envelope or, the answer to a research and development question for a company, or, as Russell Targ did, knowing whether silver futures, are
Oh,
things going to go up or down,
yeah.
or like you said,
They made a lot of money on that too.
they
Yeah.
did, even for now, but for then especially. But you've talked about other uses for remote viewing that I don't think the average person will or necessarily should use it for, and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But where you and other people have worked either with intelligence or with law enforcement to help people find like missing persons, a missing child,
Mhm.
and so forth. I don't know.
Yeah.
In your opinion, is that one of the highest forms or highest uses
Well,
for something like this?
all of it is actually interviewing your subconscious and getting information. And if you can put a picture in an envelope, and I can tell you what's in the envelope, then what's stopping me from telling you what's in the envelope and the top classified secret safe in the Kremlin? There's no difference. What's the difference between that and me actually knowing what the doctor actually wrote in his report instead of what he told me? and looking into the future. The doctor predicted this. What's it going to lead to? And writers, history was written by the victors, right? Okay, somebody wants to write a historical novel. They want to know what really happened, not what the victors wrote.
Good
Hey,
point.
no difference. One of the about the thing on the moon, right?
I don't know if I do. Tell me.
Okay, we're doing a lot of science. I mean, space research now.
Now,
This is Virgin, yeah. Many years ago, they contacted me and they said, we want to know how to build a temporary structure on the moon that will hold up so that we can put people on the moon to build a permanent structure. I mean, you put people on the moon to build a permanent structure, you got to have some way to protect them while they build it,
okay.
And so we did the work, and what we got through the remote viewing was that if you take a special type of coated mylar or some plastic like that, stretch a huge sheet of it over a small crater on the moon, seal it, you can fill that crater with air, 16 pounds of air, which is sea level, and half of what you'd put in a bicycle tire, and you can house the people who are there to build a permanent structure. So they were ecstatic about it. And it was some years later that a friend of mine who has access to the stuff was showing me a video of a flyover of the moon that the public never got to see. And sure enough, there was that little crater with the plastic stretched over it as a bubble.
Now, by the way, anything I ask you, you can tell me I'm not going to talk about that or however you want to say it.
Yeah,
Can you?
I'm not going to tell names.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
But I
okay.
mean, is there a specific agency that tasked you with that? And you don't even have to say what it is.
I'm not going to tell names. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
totally get it.
Yeah.
Enough said. But you've been tasked with some really interesting things, you and the
Mm,
other remote viewers.
very
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
yes. Is there something that comes to mind as the most interesting thing you have been tasked with, either during the military or after?
It'd be sort of hard to choose between them,
Of
but
course.
the two that are always outstanding to me, uh, one I still don't like to talk about. It was one of the plans of Saddam Hussein. He was planning to lob an American missile into the Hajj, the Feast of Ramadan, and basically just destroy all of the other Muslim leaders who would be there. And that would leave him, who would be sick that day, you know, as the leader of the Muslim world, and could prove that it was an American missile that he used, and would, organize the Muslim world against the United States and against the free world.
And murder
And
a whole bunch of people
well, at that time,
at that time.
we could not have won that war. And if that missile had gone off today, we would either be Muslim or dead.
Okay.
Only two choices. Okay. And so, anyway, the information that came from that session let them find the missile before it was ever fired.
And you were specifically tasked with this during your time in the unit.
Well, not me specifically. The everyone was tasked with
Right.
it. Yeah. Yeah. But the information in that session that I did was passed up the line, and I was told. I was told about 3 months later what had happened. We didn't always get feedback.
No, I can imagine.
I don't know how many times they would they would come back and we'd ask for feedback, and they'd say, "I'm sorry, you're not cleared for the information you gave us."
That must have been maddening.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Well, you're a remote viewer, the cry of
Remote view it.
the plaintive cry of the wild remote viewers. Feedback, feedback. I want feedback.
Well, and I just want to mention that getting feedback is associated with greater accuracy. Our
Right,
subconscious minds seem to want to know, and who
and
could blame
learn.
them?
That's why in training we never give targets that don't have good, solid, hard feedback because we're not there to impress you with your remote viewing skills. We're there to teach you to learn how to do it. And so that feedback gives you immediate feedback. You can see what you did right, you can see what you did wrong, and it's a learning experience.
So, Lynn, that brings me to one of my other questions because you do offer training and you have trained many of the best trainers out there: Colleen Marenich,
Oh,
Lori
yeah.
Williams, Paul O'Connor, others. And there are
Coral,
many,
Coral Carte over
yes,
in Italy. Yeah.
absolutely. And certainly you're connected personally to many others like Gail Husick.
Oh,
And, as I was thinking about what to ask you, because I know you've done a million interviews, I was thinking on the one hand, yes, everybody can develop their psychic ability.
yeah.
Everyone could use this to enrich their lives in a good way, not necessarily in a purely selfish way, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's tapping into who's going to be the best babysitter for your kids or the best partner or which
That's
job
true.
you should take, being more conscious of that fact that we're connected to everyone. So when we do something that's not nice,
Yeah.
there's a ripple effect that maybe we can choose not to do. But there are certain maybe risks also associated with developing this skill. Maybe certain people who should not go down this road at this time. I don't know if you want to talk about any of that.
Well, yeah, I think it should be talked about. One of the introductory things that I give to basic students before they even sign up, one of the things that I'd like to tell people is that this is going to change your life, and it will deepen your life, it will enrich your life, but in the process, it's going to change your life as well. And the example I give is the guy who's a hardened alcoholic, and all of a sudden he doesn't need alcohol anymore. It cleans up his life, and his life is better. However, his wife, who he married because she's also an alcoholic, may not change, and as a result, she may look for another partner. You know, any change you make in life is going to change all of your relationships. You're going to lose friends. You're going to gain friends. And you may lose jobs. Or you may walk off and quit jobs and take another job and and do what you want to instead of what somebody pays you to do. Yeah, it'll make changes in you, and that's going to make changes in everything else. So yeah, that's one of the things you have to consider before you do this.
Also, that's such an excellent point, and I think it's related to that or embedded in that is, your own heightened sensitivity even when you're not doing remote viewing in terms of like in certain settings, just feeling like it feels too much or maybe needing a little less people time.
Yeah, I feel that quite often. It sort of becomes hard to be around people. One of the things I've noticed is that as you learn this and get really good at it, there's a period of time before you learn how to cut it off, where it can be sort of painful to sit in a restaurant because you're picking up everything from all the tables around you. And this one time I was out at lunch with the class, and I wasn't really paying attention to cutting everything off, and I was trying to keep everything on to, you know, uh, deal with the people there at my table. And all of a sudden, behind me, there was this elderly couple who had been unhappy with each other and all that. And she was fussing at him, and we heard it, but I was trying not to pay attention to it. And all of a sudden, after all the years of marriage and everything else, he fell out of love with her and he quit loving her. And that moment when that happened to him, I think was a release. But to me, it just, it just crushed me. And all of a sudden, there at the table, I just, you know, and all my students, of course, are saying, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" It was a harsh thing, because you do experience what other people experience. You go to church, and other people are experiencing things, what the sermon is being said, and all that, and you get to feel it.
By the way, your dog is completely fine for me. I'm a huge animal person, so I'm not worried about her. Yeah, I mean, relatedly, I was thinking, because I'm a psychologist by training, I was thinking somebody with a looser hold on reality or a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of emotional stuff they're working through,
Uh,
I wouldn't recommend that they do something
no,
that's going to open them up further.
no, and I warn people that if you have these woo-woo beliefs and all that, and you start learning CRV, do not translate what you learned over into your woo-woo field, because if you do, uh, first of all, it won't work anymore, and it won't work any better than the woo-woo you've been practicing. And second of all, it will take you consciously out of reality. I'm sorry, I don't mind offending people about this. The practitioners of the mystic woo-woo stuff, they've already left reality. Okay. And so if this drives them further out of reality, that's not good. If that then brings them back into reality, which the CRV is, because it is absolutely no, well, you've been through the training. There's no woo woo to this. And then it's a good thing. It can save or it can spoil, either way, depending on how you react.
Well, I mean, all the safeguards built in, it's a very, like you've said, a very discipline. It's a discipline. It's a concrete, specific, systematic, structured
It
protocol.
is, yeah. And that part of it was built on the martial arts, really was. Ingo was a genius, really super mega genius. And he built into the protocol so many safeguards for the remote viewer because you're remote viewing a missing kid. Okay, you may find that missing kid is with their parent, with a single parent or something like that, and where they are and all that, and it's fine and they're happy. That single kid, the kid may have been murdered, molested, and dismembered, and all this. Do you really want to go through that? And so Ingo built in protocols to protect you from the experience of remote viewing what can be a really ugly world. Yeah.
No, and I'm glad you're talking about that because I think another thing that was coming to mind as we were talking a moment ago was, we're all human. We all have ego involvement and
Oh,
we
yeah.
all have to constantly work with that. And some of us do and some of us don't do it. But if your idea is to become psychic so that you're more impressive or you can know all kinds of stuff other people don't, or be, a hero without a cape and solve crimes and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, I just think people are in for such a bad ride.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I don't care how many letters it has. Ego is a four-letter word. It really is. Um, yeah, you have to really give up your ego. And if you want to learn this to serve and to help people, then yeah, you're going to go a long way. You're going to do well. If you want this to get girls or whatever, uh, you know, or get money, uh, don't bother. Yeah,
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? And some people really, all that said, some people maybe their highest use of this technique is to be of service in that way where they help find missing people and
yeah,
so forth, right? Or help solve a crime. And we know people who have done that. I was talking to Pam Coronado on my other podcast a few
mhm,
months ago, and I know Pam for years now. And we were talking about the Beltway sniper case, and she was really instrumental in finding useful information to help law enforcement stop a terrifying,
yeah,
killing spree.
oh yeah,
But that said, not everyone is wired to do that, and people can be of service by just being the best, whatever they already are,
that's right.
teacher, realtor, physician, and
Mhm,
so forth, by being more in tune with the stuff that isn't said.
that's right. You want to stop a war, you don't stop them with soldiers. You stop them with teachers. It's just that simple, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that you said that.
you know, and one of the things that has really disappointed me is there's a another very useful tool related to CRV called ARV, and it's used to predict the future, and it can predict the future when there's 20 possible futures or when there's two and all that. And so, what do 90% of the people use ARV for?
Wagering.
Lottery, lottery or crypto. I want to make some money, make money, and what a waste. I mean, it's good to have money, you know, but they do that to the exclusion of all the other uses. And it's disappointing, really is.
Yeah, I mean, we're humans, you know, we're all trying to figure ourselves out, and everybody gets there's, I believe it's like a Buddhist teaching. I'm going to get this wrong, and hopefully people will comment and correct me, but it's the idea of what is our capacity, right? This is a total
Oh, yeah.
tangent, but
Yeah.
like, is my vessel to fill in this life a water glass? Is it a water tower? Maybe if I'm like a saint or the Buddha, maybe it's a water tower. If I'm an average person, maybe it's a water glass. If I'm not going to get very far in this life, maybe it is a thimble. It's the water tower people that are really inspiring.
Yeah.
It's the rest of us who struggle to be good, right? I wanted you to talk about two other things if you have the time, and if you don't, I
Sure.
completely get it. So one is super practical. It's taking care of the body to
Yeah.
be a better psychic. Because you
Yeah.
said something to me that no one else has ever said before, and I've never forgotten it. And people are going to think this is a mundane thing to bring up, but B12, how B12 gets depleted, especially in people who do psychic work. And
Yeah. Mhm.
this is something you learned as part of your military remote viewing, right? Because they were looking at all
Oh,
kinds of things that facilitate
yeah.
and take away from that.
Part of the research they were doing. Yeah.
That makes sense to me because that feeling of being depleted, like my B12 tends to be low. And I know that feeling, and I know the way I feel after I do more intuitive work sometimes. It's that completely enervated, I need to go take a nap, but I won't feel rested feeling. Not all the
Yeah.
time.
Mhm. Yeah.
B12,
Yeah.
easy to
B12.
supplement,
Yeah.
safe, easy to supplement.
And you can look and say, okay, what is the result of this, and what is the result of that, and all that. One of the things about this, looking at the results, is that you learn some truths, and uh, and you look at your own actions. You say, okay, what if I do this? What's going to be the result? What if I do that? What's going to be the result? You can change the future. We have, well, the um, analogy of Joe's Bar and Grill. Joe's Bar and Grill, that analogy Um, the police come to you and they say, "Where will the criminal be at 9 o'clock?" And you say, you do your magic and you do your session and all that. Oh, he's going to be sitting at Joe's Bar and Grill eating dinner. And so at 8:30, the police go out and hide in the bushes. At 8:45, he walks up to the to enter Joe's Bar and Grill. They jump out and arrest him, and at 9 o'clock, he's in jail. Okay, somebody acted on your prediction, and it changed the future. If you had predicted that he's going to be in jail at 9 o'clock, they would not have gone up to Joe's Bar and Grill, and he would be sitting there eating dinner. And the future is very changeable by simply acting on knowledge about the future. And so if you can look at your own life or the life of your family or whatever, or the life of your government, whatever, and say, look, if we take this road, it's going to be disaster. If we take this road, it's going to be great. And act accordingly, you can change those futures. And it's as simple as that. It really is.
It's kind of a trippy, mind-blowing concept, right?
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, it works. We've shown it. We've predicted one time there was going to be a terrorist attack on the United States. I got that basically. Will there be another attack? And if so, tell us where and when, and how it's going to be done. And it did that. And I described the results of the terrorist attack and everything else. But I'd also described where and when. And so they had agents there and they stopped the terrorist. And so those results that I had predicted never happened. So in that case, you would have said I was wrong. I would be very happy to be wrong in that case. The fact is, when you predict the future, you see it as it stands when you do the session.
Right.
And predicting future targets is no different from the weatherman when he gets up and he says, on Friday, there's going to be such and such. Well, the next day he says, on Friday, there's going to be, and he gives you a different story because it's updated. Not because he was wrong, but because he updated it with more information.
Absolutely. And I can't help but tying it back to the ego thing from a few moments ago, because again, if
Right.
our egos are so invested in being right, maybe we don't change. If we take our egos out of it and we tap into something there will be an opportunity to change something for the better. And then that makes our prediction wrong. Much
Hey,
better to be
that's
wrong,
great. That's
right?
fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
I,
100%.
when it comes to future targets, if I can get somebody to act on it and change it, I do not mind being wrong.
Absolutely. I want to high five you through the computer.
If it's a past target, if it's a past target and I get it wrong, then I'm wrong.
I wanted you to tell this was my second thing because I could talk to you all day, but I don't want to keep you all day. Your ninja story. I was explaining this to my husband who has done martial arts previously. I am martial arts naive myself, but I know other people who do it, right? You have two anecdotes about the ninja who took CRV training with you.
Yeah.
One relates to ambiance,
Yeah.
and one relates to just the amazing thing this person could tap into. So,
Yeah.
are you okay telling those two kind of related
Sure.
anecdotes?
This one is 8th level black belt in ninja. The reason he told me the reason he took it was because they have sake no jutsu, which is the sense of everything within arm's reach, 360 degrees around you. And he said, but people have bullets now, and we want to extend that beyond arm's reach. Like, so anyway, one day we were walking down a hallway, and I was walking behind him,
Like, how
and
far were you behind him?
I guess I was maybe 3 feet, 2 feet, You
Okay,
know,
so still
it,
close.
it was a narrow hallway, so I had to, get over right behind him. And I thought, I wonder if I could reach up and hit him on the back, and he'd not expect it. And over his shoulder, he said, "Try it, and I'll break your arm." And I thought, well, that answered that, didn't it?
So his Sakanu Jitsu, his radar basically picked up
Oh
on
yeah,
the change in your energy based on that thought.
I would not mess with a ninja.
Me
Okay,
neither.
good advice here. Uh,
Well
the
taken.
other, the other was I got a call from him, and his he and his wife had gone to uh, some kind of an opera or play or something like that. When they got out, they had to walk 3 blocks back to their parked car, and the streets were empty and all that. And he said he immediately sensed that about 2 blocks away there were some people waiting, some guys waiting to jump out and rob them. So he said they walked on, and sure enough, they got out there right to that spot. The two guys jumped out to rob them. And I said, "Well, are you okay?" And all that. And they said, "Oh, yeah, they're in the hospital. But you don't understand what I'm calling about." I knew it 2 blocks away. And he was so proud of that, you know.
Well, that's after doing the remote viewing training, the CRV training.
Mhm.
So it expanded his awareness.
No, he expanded his awareness by letting go of the limits that he had learned in learning ninja.
Let me ask you a follow up about that, though,
Okay.
because you've talked about ambiance and you talk about ambiance as our sixth sense. You say it's not psychic. To me, it always feels psychic. But if I understand correctly, you describe it as us having kind of, every nerve in our body being very attuned.
Yeah, every nerve in our body is a sheath of water, which acts as an antenna. Okay. Somebody walks in the room and they're angry, their nerves are broadcasting that. Your nerves are going to pick it up. And somebody walks in the room angry, and the ambiance in the room changes. Everybody feels it. Somebody
Absolutely.
walks in happy, everybody feels it. And yeah, that's ambiance. And I think that ambiance is more of a physical, um, let's say electrophysical,
Okay.
uh, if I can coin a new word, uh, situation where you pick up your nerve system picks up the nerve systems what they're broadcasting around you. Yeah,
Now,
that's I can't prove that, but that's my belief.
okay.
Yeah,
So maybe that's Saka no Jutsu. I don't know. Right? Is that
no,
the same kind of
yeah,
phenomenon?
that everybody has it. The ninjas develop it, uh,
But
but
it's psychic if
if
they're
they
like 3 blocks away, right? Then it's no
or
longer
halfway around the world.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, right now, you know, I could I could task you. You could do a remote viewing session and tell me what Vladimir Putin feels about his plans for today, for tomorrow, and the next day. You know,
Lynn, at
it's
the risk of sounding like a psychologist, I could tell you that anyway.
maybe
Yeah, I mean, I have all kinds of thoughts about that.
maybe
We
you
might
might
say
be
that.
you might be surprised though if you did. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe we'll talk offline about that. But I have many thoughts about what's going on there. But
yeah. Those thoughts are polluted by the press, and press you don't get the whole story. Yeah,
um, I want to make sure we talk about Remote View Ranch. This is
yeah.
something you started.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
You had it 2 years now. I can't remember.
About 3 years now. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
and we're trying to develop it to be a training place for not only remote viewing, but the other mind sciences as well, also for research Also, the thing is in a no-fly zone, way out in the middle of nowhere, and you talk about peaceful. The silence is loud. The silence is so loud you can almost hear it, and peaceful and beautiful, fantastic sunsets, sunrises, everything else. I'm hoping to make that a research and development place for not only remote viewing, but for the other mind sciences as well. And already the Space Museum here has already said they want it for their star parties and
Wow.
UFO watches and all this other stuff.
Okay.
A lot of
I'm gonna
possibilities.
put a link in the show notes for how people can donate to
Oh, good.
support the Remote
Yeah.
View Ranch. They should 100% get your book, The Seventh Sense, because it's great.
Oh, thank you.
And it really tells so much about your journey. I mean, obviously not all of it, but what can be contained in a book. Other things you want people to know, things that I haven't asked,
Hmm.
anything?
I would say two very important things. One, we haven't found anybody who can't do it. Therefore, to each listener, I would say you can do it to some extent. You'll have things that you're good at, things that you're not good at, but you can do it. Okay. And in this world, it's okay to be psychic. It really is. And the other thing is, there are tons and tons of scammers out there
Good point.
developing their own thing and saying, even a lot of them are saying, oh, this was the top secret stuff used by the military. Listen, if you hear them say that, or you say that it was secret, even secret stuff by the military, CRV was never classified. It was never classified. It was never even confidential, never secret. Um, what was classified was the fact that the military was using it. And so when somebody advertises that they teach the secret method that was used by the US military, hey, they've already told you they're scamming you.
Okay. Good
Yeah.
point. Because there are a lot of people, you almost can't throw a rock without hitting somebody saying that they're teaching the remote viewing. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Oh, yeah. So just, beware, check their credentials. If they say, call me and say, hey, I won't say the name here, is saying that he learned remote viewing from you. And I say, he was never my student. I don't know him. I've never met him. He's lying to you.
Yeah.
Oh, but he's charging a really high price for it. And I said, no, you're paying a really high price for it, and he's scamming you.
Such a good point. We have mentioned some of the people you have trained, and I'll mention them again. Lori Williams, Paul
Yeah.
O'Connor, Coral Carte,
Oh, listen,
uh,
they're good. They're good
Colleen
trainers too.
Marenich, Richie
Gail,
Mahoney.
Richie Mahoney. Oh,
Sorry, yeah,
Richie
Richie Mahoney.
Mahoney. His strength is in the medical applications, and he is doing fantastic work. Just fantastic work. He's over
Maybe
in Dublin. Yeah.
he's in Dublin. Okay. And maybe the last quick thing to mention is we didn't even get into it yet, but remote viewing, controlled remote viewing. I think earlier I said, okay, what are some of the highest forms of, the highest ways of using? And by highest, I mean like the things that are aligned with the best of us, right?
Russell Targ will tell you that the ultimate goal of the remote viewing is self improvement. And um, I think you know about the time when I was given that thing that changed my life completely uh, as a target. Uh,
I'm thinking which one, and it's up to you if you want to say it. I have one in mind.
okay, uh, I had
Totally up to
been
you.
I had been tasked with Saddam Hussein, with Idi Amin, and all these, and their plans and intentions for the next day. And it was wearing me out. And I went in and I said, "Look, give me Bozo the Clown, give me Mother Teresa, give me somebody, but not these psychopaths and psychopathic maniacs." And the director said, "Do your damn job. You're a soldier. Get out of my office." And a few weeks later, there were no real tasks, and so I got a target blind because we always worked totally blind. Never knew what the target was. The My monitor said, "Okay, this is a personality assessment. Personality assessment is where you view a person and assess their personality, but you don't get involved. You don't get their plans and intentions or their thoughts or you just assess the person." And so I did it. And by the end of the session, I was just felt like I was glowing. And I said, "Whatever evil you think this guy did, he didn't do it." And that was the sum of my entire session. Whatever evil you think this guy did, he didn't do it. And he opened the envelope, and the director had handwritten on a sheet of paper, "Jesus was the target." And to this day, that was one of those sessions where I had what Ingo calls bilocation, what I call the perfect site integration. And in that session, I was standing there. In that situation, you can't tell that you're not at the target. And I was standing there looking at this guy and assessing him. And in the body, in the real person, in the physical person, I've never met Jesus. Okay. In the experience, I met him and it changed my life. Really did, for the better. And yeah, it's that kind of experience. I don't know how we got off on that subject, but
I do, because you said that Russell Targ said that the purpose, the
oh yeah,
ultimate purpose is to be,
yeah.
self-improvement.
And of course, the military says the main purpose of it is to collect intelligence and save lives, bring home missing soldiers. The police will tell you it's to bring home missing kids, find evidence, and all that. The researchers will tell you it's to get the right thing funded because you can look into the future and tell which of these ideas is going to work. Doctors will tell you the purpose is to get the right diagnosis. So that's a hard question to answer, really.
But I think the common theme with some of them, those things, is how do we help someone besides ourselves? How do we develop and grow as people on a
Right.
spiritual level? And it sounds like you're meeting, and I don't even know how to, I don't even know if it's even appropriate for me to ask, because, my questions are like, did you feel like you were meeting a person, like going back in time, meeting a person, like especially evolved person? Or did you
Oh,
feel like you were in a spiritual realm outside of time and space? And I don't know what.
in that in that PSI experience, you can't tell you're not at the target. No, I was standing there, and there was this man in front of me, and we were standing there dealing with each other. Yeah,
And
and
you felt transformed.
I was transformed. Yeah, absolutely. Um, but that's one of the highest levels of remote viewing. Uh, Very few people ever get to that level. I've gotten to that level 11 times in the past, 35 years.
The bilocation, the perfect site integration.
The perfect site integration. Yeah, it's very rare. Yeah.
That's amazing, Lyn. Yeah, I don't feel like I can even top that. So with any question now seems like it wouldn't come close, right?
Well, the thing, like I say, be careful of who you get to train you. Look for their credentials, and you can do it. Now, I think the hardest thing that I have to teach when I teach is that it's not hard.
That's wonderful. Well, Lyn, I want to thank you so much for your time. I will put all of the information and links in the show notes. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to spend with me today. I know you have a million demands on your time. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you. Looking for you at the webinars.
Yes, I will be there Saturday.
Good. All
So
right.
good to see you. This has been another episode of Curious Explorers with my guest, this time Lyn Buchanan. If you enjoyed the episode, please remember to like, share, follow, leave me a comment. Let us know what you think. Check out Lyn's website and all the good information he has. And of course, as always, until next time, be well. I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.